Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everybody. We start with the name of the Almighty, who is the Lord of the universe and compassionate and merciful. I hope you have been following the proceedings of this conference. I am Professor Azhar Ahmed, and I have been asked to moderate this very important panel discussion. You would be happy to know that we have a very large audience online that is joining us, especially not that all over the academia, but particularly we have about 30 plus university students joining us in this discussion online, starting from the north, from Kashmir to the very south of Pakistan. So we have a very vast audience from all over Pakistan, and this shows how significant this subject is and the interest that academia, of course, but even general public and decision makers are taking in this. Just to recap, the topic of discussion in this panel is the new international order as an opportunity for the development of the global south. We have a very formidable panel of distinguished experts who surely do not need much introduction or moderation. But since I have been given that responsibility, I'll try to intervene only when it is really necessary. Each speaker has been asked to give his talk in about 10 to 12 minutes to present his or her point of view. My observation generally is that only those who lack grip on the subject tend to speak longer than the desired duration. And I'm sure this problem will not exist in this panel because all are experts in their field and they know what they are talking about. To begin with, our first speaker is Dr. Safdar Sohail. But pardon me, before that, I must also mention that the chair of today's session is Mr. Khalid Rahman, who is currently the chairman of the Institute of Policy Studies, Islamabad. He's been associated with the Institute since its inception in 1979. Mr. Khalid Rahman is a renowned scholar, a prolific researcher and writer, and a powerful orator. He is also a non-resident senior fellow at the Research Center for SAARC States at Hainan Normal University, Haikou, China, and a non-resident research fellow at the Research Center for Social Development of Islamic Studies, Hebei University, China. Moreover, he is also on the board of advisors and directors of several national and international research and social development organizations and forums, and will sure benefit from his expertise and comments at the end. So, coming to our first speaker, Dr. Safdar Sohail is joining us online. Dr. Safdar Sohail is the Executive Director of Social Protection Resource Center. He has also served as Special Secretary to Cabinet Division, Government of Pakistan, dealing with matters of accountability, parliamentary affairs, and development. Belonging to the Commerce and Trade Services, he has supported and contributed policy formulation and research while also leading diplomatic efforts in trade. He volunteers his time for the joint initiative of Ministries of Health and Human Rights to make Islamabad Capital Territory a better place to live for the persons with disability as well as the elderly. Dr. Safdar Sohail, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you listen?
Thank you, sir. Dr. Safdar will enlighten us on the topic human civilizations from ethnocentrism to inclusive social political structures. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, the moderator. And I must start by thanking IPS for organizing this event and thank also the partners from Karachi and from Poland. With Poland, my first introduction was in 1992 when I was doing my PhD in sociology from France, and I traveled from Paris to Moscow via Warsaw. And could see the transition happening. Then I was Pakistan's economic minister to EU in Brussels, and there, both in Warsaw and Katowice, I attended sessions which made me aware of the developments that Poland had witnessed over the past many decades, and particularly the vitality of Polish policy community and academia. I am also aware of the efforts being done in Poland on what is called Christian economics. So I've been watching these developments, and when I was invited by IPS to participate in this conference on a very important topic, I happily and instantly agreed to it, because this is a topic which is extremely important in the contemporary world and for the future of humanity. And speaking of Pakistan, a future for Pakistan also. Now, the word civilization has been used in the title, in the abstract, and the general message that one gets is that the word community, the major countries of the world find themselves in one such stage that is marked by a major strategic, geo-economic changes. And there are new powers emerging. There are new powers who prefer to present themselves as civilizations. They are staking their claims, one could say, to be also called a civilization which could contribute to the human welfare. We all know that inter-civilizational encounters historically have brought a lot of good also, problems also, but good also. So in that context, I look at the situation these days as a situation where the Western civilization, Western power, globalization is not only being challenged by newly emerging powers, this so-called polycentric world, but there is a strong internal critique also of the Western civilization and globalization. So that has created a lot of space for such discussion that a civilization which was strong and which contributed a lot to the development of humanity, what kind of problems is it confronting? Because it's important to it's important for us to understand, in the sense, and I'm going to talk more about that Pakistan, India, China, the three countries that I'm going to focus on, have had a massive exposure to the West, either in the form of direct colonialism or indirect colonialism, as was the case with China. Now, the critique on the internal critique on the Western civilization is at least 100 years old, starting with Spengler. But I would refer more to two major trends that we see these days. One is the trend of degrowth, which is self-explanatory, that the key tenet of Western civilization, you can say, which was the maximization of profit, is being challenged there. And the limits of capitalism, one can say, again, a foundation stone of the Western civilization, limited by ecological justice. And then the inward-looking realities of the West in the form of homeland economics by US, for example. But I think the most, at least what I like more, is the critique by Piketty, Thomas Piketty, on the system of governance that the West has given to the whole world, which is being followed here also in Pakistan. The neoliberal system of governance, that is wealth inequality. Now, wealth inequality, the problem that wealth inequality is producing have been explained by Piketty in two of his major books. And the major insight that I derive from him is that it is not, the human welfare is not about the economic policies. It is about politics. So having said that, now what kind of legacy West has left in our countries? So in order to make a comment on the civilizational condition in China, India, and Pakistan, I have, while preparing my talk, I have studied many theories of civilization, so to speak. We all know Fukuyama, Huntington, Spengler, Toynbee, etc. But I could find only one theory of civilization which has the interstate relationship as a normative constituent of the theory. There is one such intellectual who makes it as a condition that you cannot call an area. You see the other features of civilization, that it should be a big area, a lot of people, economic progress for a long time, progress of art and culture and architecture, stability. I'm referring to Shah Waliullah Dehlvi of Indian subcontinent, an 18th century intellectual, who said that the capacity of internal social development on the one hand, and the capacity to have peaceful interstate relationships are the hallmarks of any civilization worth its name. So I'll repeat that his theory says that social development within the society and the capacity of the government to hold peaceful interstate relationships make a civilization worth its name. Now, the way Shah Waliullah explains his theory is that he asserts that any civilization status of society should be judged from the level of social development which is there in that country or society, one can say. So there he divides these levels from simple ones, that is the first stage. He calls it technically ittifaqat. We can conveniently translate it in English in levels of socio-economic development. So the first stage is the family, where the individual live in small groups and bothered more about residence. They have marriage, they come across weather and protect themselves. Now, this is more or less like other natural beings, like even animals who live together. The second stage is that of the society, where now you have preoccupation with the morals, which should be adopted in daily collective social, mutual cooperation, mutual exchange. And the third stage is that of the state, where you have social solidarity by protecting the morality. The state is able to have penalties. There's a political system. There is a system for external security. And there are palpable achievements for public welfare. The fourth and final stage of such a society is the interstate, international state, where the nature and kind of relation that exist among citizens of different countries would tell us about the nature of that state. Now, using this framework of Shah Waliullah, I personally think that the states that we are concerned with here, that is China, India, and Pakistan, are the states between stage number 2 and 3. China, one can say more in the stage number 4, and the restraint that Chinese are showing in interstate relationships also suggests that China is now almost on the 4th stage, and their internal social development is also more homogeneous. Wealth inequality is not much. The rule of law is very much there. So one can see that China perhaps qualifies for the stage 4, where they have a good quality governance and internal social development, and a desire and perhaps a capacity for stable interstate relationships. Now, that is not the case with India. If we compare with China or even otherwise, I need not comment in detail. The people who follow India, if they study the analyses of the election results of the recent elections 2024, which were announced on 4th of June, where they say that Modi has lost and India has won, but India has won potentially. Would India be able to move ahead with having a social harmony within the country, and its neighbors would start feeling that they are able to have stable interstate relationships? So there, in my own assessment, India is between stage number 2 and 3, and they are struggling on that. Belonging to an ancient civilization and putting a claim on that is one thing, but I was horrified to read a comment by a very serious analyst, who said that the establishment of the Ram Mandir on the site of the demolished Babri Masjid is a civilizational moment. So if we put this in perspective, I think we can clearly draw this conclusion that things are not that good. Now, coming back to Pakistan, Pakistan has been following rapid globalization and free market policies, neoliberal economics, particularly since 1990s, and the result is that we have new societal conditions in Pakistan. For example, we have market civilization with deregulation, and market civilization without standards. I'm aware of my time. I would not go into the details, but perhaps in question answer session, that Pakistan now has a market civilization, which basically means that even in a distant village, you can have the consumption habits which are leveled, which are similar. But our market civilization is without standards, or not much standards. We used to have a strong constituency for civilizational growth of Pakistan as a civilization, which now somehow is dissipating. Recently, Pakistan's leaders from different areas like business, like politics, like media, they have coalesced into one coherent group which is ruling. Pakistan has grown a big time fun culture among the youth, and the dominant feeling in Pakistan is that of hopelessness based on the real or imagined normlessness in Pakistan. If you follow the social media or mainstream media, what you come across is that most of the thinking Pakistanis think that Pakistan is in the grip of an increasing normlessness, which is basically creating what we call social anomie, that if a large number of people can do whatever they feel like, and you do not really bother about the means and ends distinction. If you can do whatever you feel like, everything goes to achieve your objectives, then that means we have a presence of social anomie in terms of loss of values, and we have institutional anomie. We don't trust our institutions. So in this context, at this moment, the wealth inequality and the kind of governance we have, the kind of institution that we have, it is hard to imagine Pakistan where prosperity and social solidarity can coexist. Now, as long as Pakistan does not achieve this ideal, which referring to Shah Waliullah, we are now between 1 and 2 basically. So we have to stabilize ourselves on Ittifaq number 3, where we have such a social development where prosperity and social solidarity can coexist. Then Pakistan should be able to play a role in promoting interstate peace. Right now, at least my personal fear is that this is a weak moment for Pakistan in its evolution. And if the next generations of the country are not aware of the dark side of market civilization and don't challenge it, we would become further weak. And we are living in one such neighborhood where the distinction between empire and civilization does not hold very good. So Pakistan can be a playground of the ambitions of the empires which prefer to call themselves civilizations. So to conclude, Pakistan, in terms of the scheme of things, and Shah Waliullah has to go a long way in developing those institutions which bring in that kind of social politics where we can say that Pakistan is a country which has social solidarity as a driving principle, and people have hope instead of institutional anomie. That strength would enable Pakistan to use the civilizational resources that it has coming from its history, coming from its religion, and then Pakistan can play a positive role and could be called a civilization or a successor to a proud civilization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Safdar Sohail, for a very precise talk, and especially ending it on a positive note. That is very important nowadays, especially for the youngsters. And thank you for explaining what a civilization is. And I think it's very important for us to be able to differentiate between civilizations and empires. And once we do that, things would be much clearer for us. Probably there'll be some questions later on the concept of morality and equality, because nowadays those who stood for morality and human rights, we see what they are doing when it comes to Gaza and Kashmir and all that. So thank you for a very learned discourse. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker is Brigadier Syed Nazir. And as the name suggests, Brigadier Syed has had an illustrious career in the Pakistan Army, where he has served on various command and staff positions. He is also an alumni of the National Defense University of Islamabad, where he earned a master's in defense and security studies. He is a renowned analyst of geostrategy and focuses on regional and international security dimensions, covering conventional, non-conventional, and sub-conventional threats and warfare. Brigadier Syed regularly appears in national and international mass media as a defense analyst focusing on the war of narratives. Currently, he is working with the Institute of Policy Studies as a senior associate on strategic affairs. His topic is alternative security frameworks for a peaceful world. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you indeed. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. My thanks to IPS and Khalid Rahman Saab, his team, the panelists, as well as to the viewers. Well, there is a saying that peace is just an interlude between the two wars. On this contest, I've got to present one are the constants of wars, and another is the variables of cost. So first, the constants, which have been displayed on the slide, they're too straight and simple to consider, but the last one is more interesting, that even the just wars are destructive in nature. So there is, war cannot be undestructive. And the second last, of course, nuclear deterrence prevails since its first use against Japan, and that's why UN is surviving. And the variables, let me come to. That the future, which has been shown on the slides, but the third point, natures of war and its scope, it will be always changing. And on the fourth, we have got, beside the machines, the drones warfare, and that are changing the faces of war. And the next and the fifth is the nature of sanctions and its duration. That varies in its magnitude and in its terms. The seventh one, of course, we can cite the example of Versailles Treaty. So unjust treaties also lead to the wars. Let me come to the conclusion from these two. So first is the world military corporations. So they prevail, and there they provide fuel and fodder to the war at the cost of human peace and life. And the third, I must say, that the war products corporates, world prevails on the war thinking minds. So they are compelling them to wage a war because they've got a lot of machines at their disposals. And of course, the concept of wars are overwhelming the constants of peace because war is always there. The military alliances that make the political and economic alliances less relevant, rather even the disengagement takes place. And on the seventh, I say, conventional deterrence is not so relevant where nuclear deterrence exists in all its forms. And the last one, that peace is sine qua non to the progress and prosperity, but yet wars are waged in spite of its understanding. One globe and multiple worlds. So the term, title, and normers, such as first world, second world, third world, and so unipolar, bipolar, tripolar, multipolar, and so goes to the aligned, non-aligned, developed, undeveloped, developing. These are all in one globe. Besides the war, blocks are an excess, they exist. There were the excess power, the allies, and of course the NATO was existing, so was the Warsaw Pact. And now there are AUKUS, Quad, and BECA. The third point I'm coming to, that the political, economic, geographical groups are sprinkled along the Gulf, around the globe, with different agendas. And they are in the form of BRICS, SCO, G7 series, European Union, OIC, and of course, the African Union, and so goes to the GCC. And there are many more. So coming to the League of Nations, they are the world bodies. So of course, it was established in 220, and of course, got its end in 1946. Why it failed? It was responsible for the collective security of the world and solving the dispute through negotiation and arbitration. But the Second World War took place. It was either of the appeasement, annexion, or the overhang of the First World War, which gave rise to this violence. The nations which were there on the world level, either they were paralyzed to prevent the Second World War, or they were tired of it. And of course, in the 20th century, the main features were, of course, the Balkanization and colonies and the Second World War. The failure of the League of Nations in not stopping the World War, ending at the drop of a nuclear bomb on Japan, and of course, that is a very horrific example in the human history. The United Nations, of course, it was established in 45 April, and the purpose was again to maintain international peace. And that peace was supposed to, and still existing, but not among the world's nations, but between the superpowers. The Cold War followed the suit, but remained cold because of the nuclear deterrence. The UN is witness to, the present UN is witness to 250 conflicts in 155 regions, where the superpowers are directly or indirectly involved in 201 violent conflicts. Say Vietnam, Kosovo, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and currently the war on Gaza, the most blatant violation of international law in the context of deliberate killing of women and children in an inhuman way and reflecting apartheid practice and genocide in character under the glare of cameras and human eyes. Of course, the Ukraine war in the backyard of Europe is due to expansion and containment of NATO and military machines, which reflects on the helplessness of UN. And another is that the destruction of Yemen, Libya, Lebanon, Syria, etc., they were on the name of Arab Springs. And beside that, the hundreds of civil wars which took place in the world around. So let us put the UN in the arena. The unjust peace treaties are prelude to another war in the making. And the unjust wars are a direct threat to the global peace. The roots of global peace lie in the Charter of UN. And the third world countries are in a perpetual and constantly engulfed in the wars. They may be mutual, they may be proxy, or there may be a terrorism at the large scale. Of course, the UN Charter is there, but does it prevail among the big powers? Or it is the nuclear deterrence is a fear syndrome which is holding the peace amongst these bigs. Enough with the Cold Wars, unipolar, bipolar, and of course the First and Second World, West and the rest, and New World Orders. Structural reforms in the UN Charter and its security according to the spirit of the Article of 109 are overdue since at the age of 85 years of UN. The creation and formulation of a global union with an agenda and charter to meet the challenges of 21st century and fits its purpose, its organ must be designed to address the conflicts of major powers. There are a host of international spheres of conflicts escalating in kinds and magnitude, like cyber warfare, hybrid war, climate changes, global terrorism, unbridled artificial intelligence, drone warfare, and non-state actors, hackers, Islamophobia, and the excesses of Hindutva. The question being asked is whether P5 is part of the problem or the legal provision of legal UN Charter, the war in Ukraine, and the genocide in Gaza, where even the cessation of hostilities is captive to the nods of P5. Now let's come to the global south. This term was coined in '69, and it was in the aftermath of Vietnam War. So I suppose I've been given the time. That is almost at the ending. So let me come to whatsoever the slides are there on the screen. I'll not go into the details of those, but come to the alternative security framework, which is important. And there I will request for another 2 minutes or two. The revamping of the UN, because it is failing in its purpose, and the power of politics and veto power that requires a revisit, and peace-wise nuclear deterrence are rule-based order. It is to be decided. The covenant of global peace that is required, and hot and hard war be replaced by the soft war because they are not destructive in nature, and regulating the power potentials of countries according to its population, its geography, and the threat perception. Then stringent measures against the non-state actors at world level, and to put a limit to the severity of sanctions, because also they are crippling and lead to the implosions. And defaulting countries against the debt, so the debt serving funds may be raised or they may be waived off. The voices of the people must be heard. That may be the human rights group or the youth, or that may be the social groups, etc., which we have seen against the Gaza war. Weaponization of dollars, which has been used, so there should be a departure from that in the multiple currencies. And again, the delinking of trade and forex reserve from the dollar. Next. So these are few recommendations. Let me say it on a not very serious note, with a smile, that the UN should either ensure the world peace or let the proliferation of nuclear deterrence safeguard the peace. Thank you.
He is a regular trainer at the Pakistan Institute of Parliamentary Services, the National Institute of Management, Government of Pakistan, and the National Institute of Public Policy. The topic he has chosen for today is Toward an Equitable Financial Governance, Global South as the Engine of International Economic Growth. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Institute of Policy Studies, for giving me opportunity to talk on a topic which is directly or indirectly affecting our lives. And we are slowly and gradually changing with this world order, world relations, and not actually realizing that where we are going. In the last 100 years, as was mentioned by Brigadier Syed Nazir and also mentioned by Dr. Safdar Sohail about the wars, the First World War, the Second World War, and many other small wars like 251 conflicts he talked about in the world. And however, we have noticed one thing, that after the Second World War, the world has become a little grown up or mature not to jump into the war of others. And that's why Third World War, which we were, I remember when I was in school, we were talking about the Third World War, and we were in the college and we were talking about Third World War, and now in the whole of our life, and the Third World War never happened. And it didn't happen because some sort of a sanity has prevailed. But this sanity is not the sanity of human beings and human behaviors, but this sanity has come up because of the multinational corporations in the world. Today, the multinational corporations are so extensively penetrated in every household, every city, every country, every sort of province, or every sort of continent, that it's the vested interest of a businessman what to do. And it's very interesting. It's very funny. Your Lever Brothers or some other, like multinational or whatever, like the Microsoft, head of the Microsoft is coming to India or Pakistan and going to meet the head of the states. He's a businessman. What he has to do to meet the head of the states. But the whole thing has changed because head of the states invite them. Head of the states wants them to come and invest in their country. Head of the states wants them to create employment in their country. And they have penetrated so much that it's in your mobile phone and it's in your laptop and everywhere. You are penetrated by these multinational. So it's simple. If Coca-Cola thinks that a war between India and Pakistan will increase the sale of Coca-Cola, they will promote the war between India and Pakistan. And if they say, well, it is going to be adversely affecting their sales, they will fight to stop the war. So this is what is the multinational interest has gone up. Now you can see that the world income is $122 trillion, and and the market capitalization of 500 S&P companies are $44 trillion. So like what's happening? The companies are becoming bigger than the countries, and their interests are becoming more important than the interest of the economies and their borders. So the world is now, and the future of the world is nothing but multinational corporations and their interest, and the rest of the politics is kept aside. Keeping that in mind, we may see that when the United Nations goes for SDG, Sustainable Development Goals in the world, they are actually talking about creating a society with harmony, creating a society with employment, creating a society with water and environment protected, and so on. So these all goals are common goals to the people of the first world, people of the second world, people of the third world, and so on. So the world, it's very difficult to predict what the world will be tomorrow. Now you see that technology has changed, and multinational corporations has used that technology and incidents for their interests. For instance, there was a time when it was said that, vegetable oil is actually prevents you from heart attack. And after 40 years, the same doctors were saying that, the vegetable oils are the cause of heart attack. Now, when they came down and they studied, they found out that cholesterol companies have made $200 billion selling their products in the 40 years, right? Now, you must have heard about the Y2K. In 2000, it became a buzzword in the whole world, aircraft will crash or whatever, and multinational corporation made a lot of money out of it. What happened to 9/11, which is now coming up, and everybody's saying that it was just like a game. And if you remember, the stock market fell for the New York stock market fell almost 1,000 or 2,000 points. And those who were in the market and those who were aware of what is going to happen, they made millions and billions of dollars. I was seeing a clip sent by some friend a couple of days ago. They were talking about the Israel and the Jewish interest in the world. And they said they will enter a country, they will lend the money on interest rate, and in return for the interest rate, they will take the property and slowly and gradually build up themselves. And they reach a stage where the locals are totally helpless, and at that level, the head of the state will intervene and throw the Jews out of the country and get the property back. And this has happened many times in the history. That was the clip was actually telling us. Now, if you see today, like if you see IMF and if you see the World Bank and other international banks, they have indebted all the developing world. And in that way, they have sort of grabbed them, and basically, mainly through the same one sort of group of people. But the technology has changed, and technology is taking its own path. Now you see that electricity was first created and produced through coal. Then came up the water dams, and then came up the oil, and oil was cheaper. And now the electricity is being generated by solar. So previously, there was a need of a big capitalist to go and invest to generate electricity and monopolize it. Now that monopoly is breaking up, and average human being, average citizen of any country where there's a sun, he can produce electricity. Similar things are happening, like the geothermal energy coming up fast as a knowledge, and similarly other sort of sources of energy and sources of, like the electric cars is changing the world and so on. So technology is changing, and technology is bringing the world into not dependent on big economies or capitalists, but in the hands of the people. Now what we see is that in Quran there's mentioned that when this word is provided with all what is needed in this word, and when something gets shorter, Allah Ta'ala provides that. So that question that this word is getting into sort of a situation where there will be water shortage, or there will be shortage of other things, that is not happening. And the most important thing is, I remember in 1970s, International Labour Organization was talking a lot about, famine, which is going to come up in the world because of shortage of food. But the technology has developed. I believe that Allah himself has given some information to the people that now food is not an issue, water is not an issue, where countries fight. Energy is no more an issue because solar and other source of energy has become more common. So the world has become wiser not to fight. And the world has become wiser because multinational corporations have started dominating the world as such. So what I see is that the third world countries, including the South, will not be as bad as they were in the past, and they will be able to survive because of this changing world. One thing which can change the whole world in a very different way, like during the Second World War, invention of nuclear bomb suddenly changed the way wars are fought, and actually it brought an end to the continuity of war. Similar, a change in any invention, any innovation, or any exploration might change the world once for all. So it's very hard to predict that how the new world order is going to be. However, what we see is that currently it's being dominated by the multinational corporation. Especially, I mentioned one thing, that you see that if you sit in front of television to watch a program, almost 50% of your time is taken by the multinational corporations, and they force you to watch it, and they force you to buy things which you don't want to do it. So the current century looks like being dominated by the multinational corporation before some invention, innovation, or some new exploration takes place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Money makes the mayor go. It's really now the wealth that runs the course of the policies and decision makings, and the influence of NGOs and the multinationals on the policies and governments is on the increase. And as the professor highlighted, companies, and not companies, even individuals are becoming more wealthier and more influential than even countries, especially the third world countries. There used to be a time when technology developed in the military, and it was transferred to the public sphere. But now the private industries are much more technological savvy than the military, and actually they are leading the technological enterprise. So thank you very much, sir, for your talk. Last, but surely not the least, it's appropriate that we started from online presentation and now we end on the online again. We have Dr. Du Fang from China. Can you hear me? I think Mr. Ehsan will be speaking on behalf of Dr. Du Fang. Ni hao. Are you with me?
Sir, Assalamu alaikum.
Correct me if I might do a wrong pronunciation with the name. Dr. Du Fang is member of the Democratic Progressive Party. She is a researcher and a faculty member. She has a PhD and postdoctoral fellowship in management with main research interests in borderland politics and rural revitalization. Dr. Du is currently teaching at the School of International Relations of Sichuan University, where she has won the honorary prize of the 5th and 6th Teachers Innovation Competition of Sichuan University. She has conducted long-term research, mainly in Tibet and Tibet-related areas. Today, Dr. Du will share her research on multilateral mechanisms and alliances for inclusive development. And I think it's Mr. Ehsan who will be speaking on her behalf. You have the floor, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Can you hear me clearly, sir?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Thank you so much for providing me this opportunity while to participating in this international conference. I will speak on behalf of the Associate Professor of Dr. Du Fang. So here is the topic I will talk about is the multilateralism mechanisms and alliances for inclusive development. And in the case of Shanghai Cooperation Organizations. Multilateralisms in Chinese characteristics. Multilateralism with Chinese characteristics emphasize state sovereignty and non-interference, educating for all global governance systems, where all the nations have equal voices. This approach aligns with the developing countries' priorities, promoting a multipolar world order based on mutual respect and equality among states. Economically, China promotes initiatives like a Belt and Road Initiative and the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, to enhance global trade and infrastructure. These efforts provide alternatives to Western financial institutions and foster regional and global economic connectivity through bilateral partnerships within a multilateral framework. And on the in security and cultural diplomacy, China uses platforms like the Shanghai Cooperation Organizations to promote regional stability, economic cooperations, and cultural exchange. Initiatives like Confucius institutions build cultural ties and enhance China's soft power. Through these efforts, China aims to support a balanced global order that benefits both its national interest and global peace development. And in the case study with the multilateral mechanisms, so here is the case study of Shanghai Cooperation Organizations. So in the first, I would like to have an overview of Shanghai Cooperation Organizations. As this organization founded in 2001, this organization have developed now one of the international organizations with global influence. Since its inceptions, the Shanghai Cooperation has made outstanding achievement in maintaining a regional security and stability, promoting common prosperity and development, and promoting international order in a more just and rational direction. A Shanghai Cooperation Organization is a regional organization and was established after the Cold War. It has 20 years always with the political and security cooperation as the main content. At the same time, the economic and cultural exchange today we have developed across Europe and Asia, basic establishment, members, internal cohesion, organization, cultural cooperation, significant expand. The high international influence of the new intergovernmental cooperations. After including India and China and Pakistan as a member state in 2017, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization have geographical coverage and populations in the world, and its scales of cooperations and development potential have been greatly enhanced. The Shanghai Cooperation have so many achievements, but here I will discuss a few of the achievement of the Shanghai Cooperation Organizations as this multilateral organization, how many achievements this organization have achieved yet. But the most important is as this organization is dealing with the political and security cooperation. So security is the core value of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the basic driving force. The countries, the continued development of SCU since establishment, the SCU and member states have upheld the Shanghai spirit, actively conducting dialogues and exchanges on security issues and mutual concern of regional military mutual trust, border democratic, combating the three forces of terrorism, separatism, and extremisms, and curbing drugs and arms smuggling, and conducting bilateral and multilateral negotiations under the Shanghai Cooperation Organization framework. At the present, due to active mediations of the SCU, the above issues have been actively resolved or promoted. Economic cooperations have achieved a remarkable result. So what are the economical achievement of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? At the beginning, this organization was established to countries, although economic cooperation was not the main issue, signed the outlines of multilateral economic and trade cooperation among member states, laying a legal foundation of deepening economic and trade cooperations in the region. With expansion of Chinese economic size since the 21st century, especially the increasing economic complementary between the China and SCO member states, economic cooperation of the SCO continue to advance. In the region, economy has achieved rapid growth and the scale of regional trade has expanded rapidly. According to the World Bank, the total GDP of the SCO country have achieved 19.3 trillion US dollar in 2020 and 11-fold increase from the beginning of its inceptions. In terms of world trade volume, according to a report of trade development in 20 years of the SCO, a total trade volume of SCO is 100 times in the 20 years. So there are a remarkable achievement of the economics achievement of the SCO. So we'll move, because of the time shortage, we'll go to the next. The cultural exchange are taking shapes. People-to-people cooperations originated from transnational culture exchange and has blossomed in culture, education, health, science, and technology. Environmental protection, tourism, and sport. In terms of the establishment of relevant institutions, after years of development, SCO has established nearly 10 ministerial meeting mechanisms in culture field. In addition, the SCO member states have also formed a series of safeguard documents on culture exchange and recent years adherent to the Shanghai spirit of a mutual trust, mutual benefit, equality, consultation, respect of diversity, civilizations of perceived common development, and concept of community with the shared future for mankind. There are also some challenges faced by Shanghai cooperation organizations. Although the SCO has made a series of achievements in its development on the whole, the SCO currently faces certain challenges mainly reflect the following aspect: the positioning differences between China and Russia on the SCO. As the core countries, China and Russia have certain differences in the positionings of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. China hopes to build SCO into a new type of regional cooperation that does not target countries outside of the organizations and do not build military hegemony, while Russia, on the other hand, is willing to build SCO into a political and economic group against the West, especially in the eastward expansions of the North Atlantic Trade Organization. For a long time on this point, China and Russia have some rooms for controversy. Russia's wills has grown as NATO's threat has intensified. The other challenge is the SCO anti-terrorism mechanism challenges and geographical space. Since the establishment of the SCO, although the anti-terrorism cooperation among member countries have become increasingly close, the SCO has not formed a complete closed loop. On the one hand, there is always return channels terrorists in the Central Asian, especially the terrorist forces in Afghanistan and the stronghold in the Middle East. Terrorists from Turkey can be continuously transported to Central Asia, thus in anti-terrorism cooperations. On the other hand, due to the incapacity of governors combined with the contradictions between the central government and the local clan forces, security forces are always difficult across the country. Clear terrorist forces, a large number of rural areas by terrorists firmly controlled, make Afghanistan a hotbed of terrorism forces. Future increase the difficulty of SCO anti-terrorism. Therefore, on the whole country, anti-terrorism situation of the SCO is still in stage of precise preventions plus timely strike, because it is impossible to form a closed terrorism loop in the geographical. And so it challenges in economic cooperations. Relatively backward economic cooperation is one of the major weakness of the SCO. Although the original intention of the SCU is not strengthen the security and political cooperation of the member state with the changes in the international environment, especially the intention and the extensions of Western influence to Central Asia. Whether the SU can effectively promote economic cooperation has become an important factor affecting the recognitions of the member state and cohesions of the Shanghai Cooperation Organizations. So there are also some challenges brought by India and Pakistan while included in these organizations. India and Pakistan has also created some difficulty for the SCO. On the one hand, the long-standing boundary contradictions between India and Pakistan and India surely challenges the effectiveness of the SCO dialogues, platform, and multilateral framework. On the other hand, India's accessions to the SCU has strategic considerations to further expand its influence in Central Asia. This is not relations between Pakistan and the secular countries in Central Asia, but also cause dissatisfactions in Russia. This move provides an opportunity for the Central Asian countries to weaken Russia's influence on restructure the geographical balance which touch Russia's security interests in Central Asia. So how to deal with these challenges? So the professor have some of the strategy have created. So expand and deepen economic collaborations. There are suggestions for to dealing with these challenges posed by SCU organization. Expand deep economic collaboration. Member states need to continue expand and deepen economic collaboration and cooperation to help break through the bottleneck encounter in deepening regional economic cooperation. Member states may give priority to deepening the alignment and cooperation between Shanghai SCU and Belt and Road Initiative. Number two, establishing a regional conflict prevention mechanism. A regional conflict prevention mechanism should be established to enhance the ability to respond to a major regional security emergencies. As China is concerned more about the security situations in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization region countries, especially in the Pakistan and Afghanistan region, it has created this unrest in the region. So number two is building a community with a shared future in stages. A member countries should build a SCU community shared future in phases and steadily rise the level of common destiny can broadly divide into 3 stages. Forming network member state partnership The first stage is to community of interest and affirm pragmatic recognitions of the SCU member state. And the second stage is to build a normative community to enhance member states' normative recognitions of the SCU. The third stage is to move toward a community of common destiny and promote the member state recognitions of the SCU as a similar entity.
Mr. Hassan, I'll request you to conclude, please.
Yeah, so this is the last is the conclusion. SCU made a progressive in political security, economic culture. As we know that it has made a progress in the new era. The SCU should also start from 3 dimensions of the international order: the regional, political, economic situation, and the internal structure of the SCU, and take advantage of new opportunity to overcome targeted challenges and promote the healthy development of the SCU. Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you very much for sharing your brilliant thesis on multilateral mechanisms and alliances for inclusive development. Of course, we have this China model, and a very interesting thing, you also mentioned Chinese characteristics. If we learn and understand that, and if we incorporate that, because whatever we do, we just try to copy paste from some model and try to apply it on us, which does not work. We have to understand our local environment and then incorporate those things in there. Well, SCO is a good model for potential development and regional networking. You mentioned economy, culture, social development, security. All these are extremely important, but they will be developed on the basis of politics, good governance, which comes with, of course, political stability, leadership, and mutual understanding. And that is, again, the model promoted by Xi Jinping of win-win situation and harmony, which I think we need to understand and promote. So thank you very much. With this, I think we come to the question and answer session. We have some time left for that. And I have already been given a list of questions that we received online. In the meantime, if you have some other question, you could share it online and be specific on whom you are asking the question and also introduce yourself. Now, to start with, I think the question which is not addressed to a particular person, so I'll address it myself to Professor Hijazi, and there are two questions, in fact. Keeping in view the current political and socio-economic unrest, in what ways can Pakistan influence the global governance framework to better reflect its interests and needs? This is Mr. Bilal. And sir, another question which is specifically addressed to you. How do you see weaponization of global interdependence? That is, through a predatory sanctions regime in such contexts as Ukraine, as well as increasing protectionism and mounting pressure towards de-risking in the aftermath of the Sino-US competition, as impacting the agency of MNCs as agents of peace. Taking the idea of climate change and the green transition as an example, electronic vehicles and renewable energy infrastructure are now subject to this weaponization, as is innovation. Ji, Hamid Hassan Saab, you would like to contribute?
Ji, thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. After listening to all the distinguished presentations from our very excellent speakers who spoke with a lot of brilliance and articulation and well-argued presentations, unfortunately, I have come to the conclusion that if we look at the world, the more it changes, the more it remains the same. Now, I would like to explain it. Actually, whatever systems have been prevailing in this world, we will start with modern times. Of course, we cannot go into ancient times. So with modern times, one empire was replaced by another empire. World domination was continued and perpetuated through many different means. And the institutions that were created perceptively or deceptively to promote peace and harmony in the world were never intended to do so. They were only intended to perpetuate the domination of the power of the day, the empirical power of the day, through different tools and instruments and through different means. So that's why they failed to achieve the result of peace and harmony in the world and only promoted conflict and misery and inequality. And this is how the system continues. And I'll give a few examples. The League of Nations failed because it only wanted to continue and perpetuate the political domination of a few dominant powers. At that time, there were British empires and then its other partners. And then it was replaced by the United Nations, which was again dominated through different means by another empire and that was the American Empire. And the domination of the means of domination were, number one, this veto in the Security Council for political purposes, which rested with the dominant powers. And number two, the Bretton Woods institutions that were created ostensibly to help the countries in need, but actually to entrap them into debt. And so both politically and economically, they ensured that their domination continues. And the domination also continued in the form of, wars and the results of wars and conflicts. The defeated nations were humiliated and made to agree to systems that were favorable to the dominant powers.
Sir, may I request
And
you to please
and
conclude
they
your
adopted
remarks?
their own, okay, I'll make it short. And they adopted the same systems of economy and other institutions. The so-called democracy and freedom of expression are all lip service. They don't really achieve anything because the dominant powers don't mean to achieve anything. Now, coming to the latest instrument, the global warming, climate change. Now, the global warming and climate change is a direct result of unsustainable development of the Western world. And they have ensured that it continues because they are not going to help the developing countries or the affected countries in any way, and they have to cope with it on their own. And that's why the more the world changes, the more it remains the same. And I don't really find any hope for a change in the system unless a system, equitable system emerges, which probably is currently promised by China and to some extent by some other few smaller countries, but one can't really predict the shape it will ultimately take. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Professor Hijazi, sir.
Thank you. Bilal question is about the current unrest in the world, especially is mainly because of the Gaza war. And if you look into it in the last 20 years, this is the second conflict in which there were more killing. And the first one was Yugoslavia when it disintegrated. And that was, again, the base of all that conflict was Jewish conflicts. They are historically intermingled with the current issues. So I think this sort of a situation has created a lot of stir in the world. But what we see is that the world has changed because you must realize that, all the people who are going for higher education are going to the West. So they get influenced by the West, and when they come back to the East and South, they have the same mind. So they are not in conflict with the West. So this has created some sort of a harmony in the world, which is on the one hand, where there's an unrest. There's also there's an expression especially in the West, in the different universities, on the streets and so on, against the Israeli aggression. And it's done even by the West and by the people, by the students of the East. So the world has practically and instead of like fighting, fist fighting, they are going into a street demo, which is a little different from what it used to be a century ago. So this looks like the new world order is more like a you can see it's like a theme sort of a situation where you don't fist fight, but you keep on protesting on a lighter note. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. One question from the floor here.
Thank you, sir.
Please,
Ikramul Haq Syed from Institute of Policy Studies. So it's not just a one question, it is kind of a take on from my side. Actually, New World Order, if you look at this Latin word which is written over there, it roughly says in a state of being born. No. If you dig deep down, it says gaining momentum. And we can take huge advantages from this. Like uh, this data-driven world, artificial intelligence is something with which we can do miracles. In medicine, in genetic engineering, in terms of agriculture, in terms of understanding the mapping of the world where the climate change is taking place and the food basket is shifting. So we can concentrate on those areas where there will be new food baskets, and collectively we can enter into a futuristic food security measures. Second is the migration and the migration diasporical importance of the political nature, where the Indians have shown their character in terms of bringing their Indian origin people to the heads of the states, heads of the multinational corporations, even the sports, culture, and so many other fields. So states have this advantage of their culture being multiporous into the world. Secondly, Sir Dr. Hijazi have said multinational corporation strategies. These are now the instruments for the foreign policy execution. So we can use these strategies as executing the national interest of the country. And the last one is we are living in a meta world realization. We have to work on it. We have to use the advantages on it, which is again a world within a world. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for your short but very smart intervention. Thank you very much. The next couple of questions to Brigadier Syed Nazir. This is from Nabila Zayed. Where do you see the United Nations in the New World Order? As for now, it seems to have failed its purpose to solve conflicts or prevent the conflicts. Please take another question, sir, from Mr. Faruza Bhatt. Ongoing conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza and the weakening of the nuclear taboo, how do you see the role of the NPT going forward, especially in the Middle East? Is there a risk of nuclear proliferation? I'm sorry, I'm not sure whether it is Mr. or Miss, but it is, I think, Firozan Bhatt.
Thank you indeed. Well, as far as the UN is concerned and the world order is concerned, so in a nutshell, it could be said that who makes the order or who makes the new world order? So of course, those P5 are the bigger juggernauts who make the world orders, and then they violate also the world orders. So there are so many world orders which came into being, and of course, then they were replaced by another world order. So unless we do the dilution of the P5 and restrict or limit their powers in veto, etc., so it will be difficult that it will be a democratic world order will come, or a just world order will come, or a world order which will care for the all members of the UN. So there is on one side General Assembly, which is democratic, and on the other side we have got Security Council, which is undemocratic. So there the 10 members are from the various regions. They are not permanent, but the whole weight of the 10 members is not equal to the 1 member of the P5. So there is the problem. So if the P5 are making the world orders, so I have also mentioned in the presentation as well, that even the cessation of hostilities are toward a first step towards the peace. That is also being vetoed by these P5s. So how comes the peace will come unless this particular mindset is changed or this power is diluted? The other question regarding the Middle East and the NPT. Of course, once we see in the Middle East that there was Iraq, and Iraq was a very, you can say, economically prosperous, as well militarily strong in the Middle East. But how it came under the shadow of WMDs, and then the WMDs, a war was waged, that is the Gulf War, where the whole of Iraq was destructive to the limits. And there were then so many non-state actors and organizations there were created. And of course, then the West is to pick up. So what is left of Iraq, and that also on a false flag operation or a war against Iraq. So I suppose the NPT is also a selective application for the few, because the NPT, you can see the nuclear agreement of America with India. So then they were given the waivers. And once the waivers are given, so it becomes a selective application. So again, this particular aspect is again in the hands of this monopoly is being maintained. But as far as the proliferation is concerned, so I suppose my last words on that was that whether it is the nuclear deterrence which is holding the peace, or if that is so, so the UN should back up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is for Dr. Dufang. Development cooperation in borderland territories along the BRI faces a contradiction. While China, as a demand-driven actor, defers to local governments in outlining development aims, these governments, especially in post-colonial states, often have weak institutional presence and a poor governance track record in such borderland areas, as well as being subject to elite capture. How might this impact development outcomes going forward?
Thank you so much, sir, for the questions. Of course, this question is relevant, and this Belt and Road is a very big project. And according to the professor, this project will certainly face some challenges, which is inevitable. I think it can be strengthened through political, economic, and cultural exchanges in all aspects. At the same time, we also hope that to be able to strengthen exchanges and contacts with more experts through civil channels, and how to better coordinate with the local governments of the border areas in the process of actually carrying out the work in the border areas. So this is the answer to the question to that questions Professor have just delivered. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And since we are running out of time, I'll just ask the last question, which is for Dr. Safdar Sohail. Thank you for your fascinating talk. How do interstate relations impact intersocial development within states? Let's take CPEC as an example. If interstate interaction is taken as a transformative process, how might CPEC investments embedded in the national and local economies of Pakistan shape its social and political dynamics going forward? Might it also exercise a reciprocal impact on China itself? And this again is from Firozan Bhatt. Dr. Safdar sir.
Okay. Okay, now I'm on mute. Well, thank you very much for this question. You see, if you look at the documents of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and look at the pronouncements when Belt and Road Initiative was launched in 2013 in Indonesia, Jakarta, the Chinese have been using a different development language, using the terms like shared prosperity and mixing the regions, etc., giving this message that their development model would be different from the prevailing Western development model. And within their country, they have successfully run their own development model, bringing the development from eastern side to the western side. And the original plan of the development of Western China did involve the regional collaboration, land bridges, regional prosperity, shared prosperity with the countries beyond the borders of the Western Chinese countries. Now, that vision has been there. And for example, to Pakistan, the Chinese said that we bring three strengths of China on the table. That is technology, that is financing, and that's their planning capability. Now, if they had brought their alternative development model also with that, then the results of the Chinese projects under CPAC should also have been different. It's a very complex subject. For example, most of the projects under CPAC are IPP regime, which the government of Pakistan has in place, which follows the bookish neoliberal FDI regime. So, and we all know that what is happening in energy and what is the future. So the Chinese projects, they came in the IPP mode, they're FDI, and they are earning the kind of projects, profits that other companies in those IPP projects are also earning. In Africa, in Latin America also, the investment regimes of Chinese have produced variable results. Chinese have tried to help developing countries with the currency swap agreements, but my personal feeling is that the Chinese still have to develop their own development model, which needs to be facilitated by the development practitioners and policy practitioners of China, which we don't see. You see, we, for example, under CPAC, we have $1 billion socioeconomic development portfolio, and with China, we have bilateral socioeconomic development projects since many decades, but you don't find any palpable difference in terms of outcomes. And now the socioeconomic development under CPAC is there for the last 5 years at least. So there, I think the Chinese are talking about an alternative model of development, which is perhaps worked well for them in the country, but to introduce an alternative development model at the international level requires much more. Now, the BRICS initiative on currencies, for example, may produce those results. So China has not succeeded in developing those alternative, they cannot be called global, but at least regional governance architecture. China, for example, in WTO, China is asking for continuity with the WTO system, which for me inherently has a problem. So if the Chinese are standing for the free market, standing for the principles of global architecture is fine. So that way, I think when it comes to the development of alternative agriculture, which is not based on profits, technology example is there in the South-South collaboration. Chinese have perhaps not come up with a mechanism for sharing technology with the developing countries on some alternative platforms, taking it as a shared innovation for them. So we are, as I said in my main presentation also, that claims are there that we are different, our civilization is on different principles than this mandala thing that Chinese love to talk about. They are good to their friends, they have been good to us also. But
Thank you,
if
sir.
we are talking about the development models, then there is a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, before I do the last ritual of asking the chair for concluding remarks, may I ask all of you for a round of applause for all the panelists for doing a wonderful job with their speeches. Thank you very much. Now my job is finished. I'll request the chair, Mr. Khalid Rahman, Chairman IPS, for his concluding remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let me at the outset thank to the organizers of this conference, of which we are also part, and we are holding this session out of the perhaps 15 sessions that are being held in that conference. In fact, this is the first collaboration which we are having with the Warmia University. And this conference is being organized by not only Warmia University, but a number of organizations as partners and patrons. I am personally really happy to see this kind of collaboration has started with this university, and I am sure this is, while a first program we are holding with them, this is not going to be the last, and we shall be having more such programs. This is the second conference, and I'm sure there will be third conference next year, and I'm sure that we will be part of that. Thanks to these speakers, it was a vast subject, and each one of them was dealing a particular dimension, but that dimension was also very vast. So it is always difficult to have everything covered of such a wide subject in the allocated time, which was not very much. But I think they have very ably covered a lot of points related to the subject. And when we shall be going forward to document the proceedings of this conference, we will be hoping that the speakers will be developing it further. You may have noticed that China was very much in the discussion, not only during the speeches that were made, but also when the discussion was going on and the question answers were there. This is quite natural. And China is an interesting case to understand the whole debate about this South or Global South or South-South cooperation or Global South versus Global North. Geographically, we know that China falls in Global South. But when in the political discourse, we try to understand where China should be placed, we will be in difficulty. Because as far as the development indicators are concerned, which have been developed over a period of time by the Global North, China is not far away. I'm using far away, while in material terms, it is just equal to that. And in some cases, it is going even forward. But as far as the many narratives are concerned, which are related to the so-called democracy or human rights and many other things, yes, they can raise certain questions about China. So that's why they continue to put China in the Global South, while the definition in the political development, international relations discourse, China should certainly be there because it matches the development indicators that are related to the Global South under the definition. Now, this will also help us if we try to understand the global map. You may have also noticed that the Global North, when presented in the world map, the scale on which the northern countries are presented, it is much higher than their actual existence on the ground. There are technical reasons. I can understand that. But it has a message that Global North is bigger, a psychological impact. So all the values that are related to the Global North, they are related to this bigger world, which is not actually bigger in terms of size, but because of the technicalities on the map, they appear to be bigger. So these are the aspects which must be highlighted in these kind of discussions. I think when we are talking about the future world order and opportunities for the global south, we should have a brief look at the past. When we look at the global south since Second World War, and we find that immediately after the post-World War, an international order was being developed for future. The global south was passing through a struggling phase. In fact, one can say it was a role of a rebellion. They were trying to liberate themselves and they were fighting with the so-called global north. So that phase started in 1945 and it continued until you can say 1989. 1989 was the point when the Soviet Union broke and we had a number of new states emerging. In fact, you can't draw a line. It's an ongoing process, but broadly, this was the first phase through which the global south emerged as a liberated world rather than an occupied world. And then we see the second phase. This started in 1990 to 2009, I would say. It was the phase of globalization. The global south, or the countries which are regarded as part of the global south, they were part of it, globalization. In fact, we can say that they were active and responsive participants in that globalization process. Now, the third phase that has started after 2009, I would say, and I would regard it as amelioration, that is change for the better. Here, the global south is playing the role of an active agent. And that is why the China is directly related to this process, that what kind of role it is playing. Because if it is included in the global north, it will be a completely different picture. And China comes up in this role as an active agent with a different paradigm of development. Although there can be questions raised in this regard, and this is always debatable, but to me, as far as the declared position is concerned, China has started this theme of shared destiny since 2010 onwards. It was a continuation of the earlier narrative also, but then it has emphasized this particular narrative that we are interested, we have only one world, this is only one earth which we need to share. We have a diverse world, but at the same time, we don't have any other option but to live in this world with peace. And for that, if we want to progress, we need connectivity and we need a kind of relationship in which all are respected. And then it came up with a very smart move, Belt and Road Initiative. Gradually, this shared destiny has been translated into one, global development initiative, two, the global security initiative, and three, the global civilizational initiative. Now, these three initiatives have been announced only in last couple of years, and they are promoting it with lot of development on ground. And some of the developments have been highlighted by our Chinese friend. Now, there are certain challenges when China is trying to lead the world in this direction. There are a lot of opportunities for global south, but there are challenges also, not only for China, but the whole world, I would say. And I would emphasize 5 points in this regard. There can be many others, but to me, these are the important points that should be highlighted in such a session. First, as has been indicated earlier also, China or the global south is not a single entity. it has its own diversity. The North also had diversity and it still has. But the difference is that the North was pursuing a paradigm on which they were almost agreed. And that paradigm and the value framework that they pursued based on the capitalism, that made them a kind of one group. And that is still their strength. Their domination in the academia, in the knowledge world, in the media, that domination has helped them to even take this paradigm to the global south. And that is increasing their influence all over the world. That gives them life, I would say, for in any future world order. And we have discussion from various speakers today. So this is an important challenge, that how the global south would deal with its diversity, that it comes up with a paradigm which is owned by everyone. Currently, I would say whatever is regarded as global south, it does not exactly share the paradigm. China is leading, insisting. But the second challenge is, what will happen if the leading countries in the global south, they, instead of changing the paradigm, they turn their attention to the benefits they can get from the present system and present international order. And I think very clearly it is obvious that if China is enjoying the veto power, then, as Brigadier Saab was suggesting, that veto power is a problem in United Nations, and how to reform it. So China has a stake in having veto power in the system. So this is going to be a challenge, that while you are speaking for a particular paradigm, how far you are ready to sacrifice some of the interests which you might be getting in the current global order. And thirdly, I would say the political and security issues, and we had a very good session, or rather speech by Brigadier Saab on the subject. I would just like to highlight the very well-known figure. The second slide, please bring in. Bhai Saab. Yeah. Now, all the P5 countries are at the top in arms export. And if they are at the top, how can we expect security all over the world? This is quite obvious. I'm not disclosing something new, but this is the challenge, that how. Now, two important things that I would like to highlight in the current context is the development of technology. I think this IT provides a lot of opportunity, as Ikram Saab also presented, particularly with the heights it has gained because of the artificial intelligence. But there are two problems with this. Number one, it is hugely occupied, owned, dominated by the West. And there is no problem if the West is occupying it. But West is coming, or the global North is coming with a paradigm of life. That is the problem. If that paradigm remains, it is not going to be really beneficial. And related to it is that it is directly related to, I would say, the regulation issue, that until now there has not been a global regulatory mechanism for these kind of business technology-oriented development. So unless there is no regulation and the paradigm remains same, I would not say it is genuinely an opportunity. It is going to be a big challenge. Unregulated artificial intelligence in the hands of those people who have a paradigm which is based on survival of the fittest, and who are always interested in getting their own interests safeguarded, even at the cost of any individual, any group, or any community which is not directly related to them. So all in all, I think this is also related with the climate change that Hamid Hassan Saab raised. I think that was a very pertinent point to draw attention. this whole paradigm of development which is currently being followed, it has this inherent problem that it promotes consumption at, with the intention to have maximum profit. So if that is the paradigm, then this climate change will continue to grow as a bigger and bigger challenge. So we need to, in fact, focus on paradigm rather than the small things. And rather than, there were three questions. I think they were all related to this paradigm issue. So I have just noted them, and I would like to highlight that. In fact, one of the question has been responded. That is, I think first we need to understand what we meant by development. So if development means physical development, if development means material development, that is a very limited context, and that is a very limited definition. Development must be comprehensive, must be inclusive, must be all around. And if it is not happening, that is not development. That is one of the key issue in current paradigm. To all speakers, keeping in view the current political and socio-economic unrest, in what ways can Pakistan influence the global governance framework to better reflect its interest and needs? I think the question has answer in it. Pakistan definitely has a role to play. But at the moment, the current data, as has been indicated in the question, we need to have more focus within. And this more focus is related to the stability that we are facing, issues for which we are facing issues. And perhaps this focus should lead to some kind of arrangement under which we can genuinely exploit our potential that we have. Right at this moment, because of the extreme polarization, we are using our energies against each other. The third question was also related to this paradigm issue. To all speakers, how can conflicts over scarce resources such as water and energy be managed within the context of the New World Order to prevent escalation and promote sustainable development? I think Hijazi Saab had pointed out that this whole debate, what is scarce and what is in abundance and how to present it, all this debate that we are deficient, the world is deficient in such and such things. We know this whole debate about the population planning. This started centuries back, and still the world is full of resources. The Food and Agriculture Organization reports every year that more than 30% of the food is wasted all over the world, from the field to the consumer. At every stage, a lot of food is wasted. So it is not the scarcity of resources, it is the management of the resources and the unequal and faulty management. So all in all, I think one should never be pessimistic. The world has been changing. As I have pointed out, this global south has played a role in different ways. And there is an initiative at the moment in the hands of global south. If we collectively pursue that, and there are, at least on the streets, Gaza has been discussed again and again. On the streets, we find that in the global north, people are coming forward, exposing the duplicity in their own system and in the double standards they are following. So this is going to be a shifting phenomena. A new shaping is taking place, and certainly we should play our role as an intellectual, as an individual. Thank you very much, Azhar Saab, particularly to you. You certainly organized it in such a way that in a short time, we have discussed a lot. Thank you very much. I would be failing in my duty, sorry, if I do not recognize Dr. Faisal Javed, who is the man behind all this conference from the Pakistani side. He is a professor at the Federal Urdu University in Karachi, and he is he's an associate of the IPS, and he was the source to connect IPS and the university in Parliament. Thank you very much. Online वालों का खास तौर पे कह दें.
No, thank you very much, Khalid Saab, and thank you very much all the viewers who have been present here physically, and especially those who have been online. It was wonderful having you, and stay connected with IPS for coming events also. Thank you.